The text message arrived at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was between patient consultations at Boston General Hospital. I'd just finished explaining a complex cardiac procedure to a worried family when my phone buzzed with what would become the most expensive misunderstanding of my mother's life. "Natalie, sweetheart, I need to tell you something about your college fund. Your sister Emma's wedding is costing more than we anticipated, and we've decided to use the money we set aside for your education. Emma needs this day to be perfect, and frankly, you've always been more practical about money than she has. I know you'll understand. Love, Mom." I stared at the message, reading it twice to make sure I understood correctly. My parents were using my college fund, money that had been sitting untouched for over 8 years, to pay for my sister's wedding. What made this particularly interesting was that I'd graduated from Harvard Medical School 3 years ago without borrowing a single dollar, thanks to the software patents I'd developed during my undergraduate years at MIT. The college fund Mom was referring to had been irrelevant to my education since I was 22 years old. I texted back, "I want Emma to be happy too. Whatever makes her wedding day special." Mom responded immediately, "Thank you for being so understanding, honey. I knew you'd see the bigger picture. This wedding is going to be featured in Southern Bride magazine. Emma is so excited." What Mom didn't know was that the bigger picture included the fact that I'd been quietly paying for my own medical school residency expenses and living costs through licensing fees from 3 software applications I'd developed. The apps, focused on medical scheduling and patient management systems, had been generating substantial royalty payments for years. My family knew I'd done some programming in college, but assumed it was just a hobby that helped me pay for textbooks. They had no idea that MedFlow Solutions, my software development company, held patents on systems now used in over 400 hospitals nationwide. That evening, I called my financial advisor, Jennifer Walsh, to discuss portfolio allocations. "Jennifer, I need to ask you about something personal." "What's on your mind, Natalie?" "My parents just informed me they're using my old college fund for my sister's wedding. I'm curious about the current value of that account." "Let me pull up your family's information." "Natalie, are you asking about the education fund your parents opened when you were born?" "That's the one. According to my records, that account has grown to approximately $127,000 over the years. Your parents have been making regular contributions even after you graduated." I paused. "They've been continuing to contribute?" "Yes, quite substantially. It looks like they've been treating it as a general education fund for any future family needs, grandchildren's education, continuing education for you, that sort of thing." "And they're planning to withdraw all of it?" "That's what the paperwork indicates." "Natalie, is everything okay with your family's finances?" "I think they're just prioritizing Emma's wedding. You know how these things can get expensive." What I didn't mention to Jennifer was that Emma's wedding had already spiraled into a $180,000 extravaganza. The college fund would barely cover the venue and catering costs. Friday evening, I joined the family for dinner at our childhood home in Lexington. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement as she showed off wedding planning binders, fabric samples, and vendor contracts. "Natalie, wait until you see the photos from our venue tasting," Emma gushed, pulling out her phone. "The Chateau Belmont is absolutely magical. It's like something from a fairy tale." "It looks beautiful," I said, admiring the photos of rolling gardens and an elegant ballroom. "And expensive," Dad added with a somewhat strained smile. "But our Emma deserves the best." Mom nodded enthusiastically. "We've been saving for this day since she was little. Every girl deserves her dream wedding." "Speaking of saving," Emma turned to me, "Mom told me you were okay with us using your college money. That's so generous of you, Nat. I want your wedding to be everything you've dreamed of. I promise I'll pay you back somehow. Maybe when Brad gets that promotion he's hoping for." Brad, Emma's fiancé, was a perfectly nice guy who worked in marketing for a small tech startup. His promotion would bump his salary from $52,000 to maybe $65,000, hardly enough to repay a 6-figure wedding fund. "Emma, don't worry about paying me back. Just focus on enjoying your engagement." Dad cleared his throat. "Actually, girls, we should discuss the budget details. Even with Natalie's college fund, we're going to be stretched pretty thin." He pulled out a notebook filled with calculations. "The venue is $47,000. Catering is $38,000. Flowers are $12,000. Photography is $8,500. Dad, I interrupted gently, how much is the wedding costing total? After everything, dress, cake, music, transportation, rehearsal, dinner, we're looking at about $185,000. And you're using my college fund to cover how much of that? The fund will cover about $127,000. Your mother and I are taking out a home equity loan for the rest. I felt my stomach drop. You're mortgaging the house? It's not a big deal, Mom said quickly. We have plenty of equity and the payments are manageable. Besides, this is Emma's one chance to have the wedding of her dreams. What about your retirement plans? We'll figure it out. Family comes first. That night, I lay awake thinking about my parents' financial situation. At 58 and 61, they should be maximizing their retirement savings, not taking on new debt for a wedding. Dad was a high school principal and Mom worked part-time at a dental office. Their combined income was maybe $85,000 a year. Meanwhile, my licensing fees from MedFlow Solutions had generated over $2.3 million in the past 3 years alone. I was earning more monthly than my parents made annually, but they had no idea because I'd never found the right way to tell them about my business success. To them, I was just Dr. Natalie who worked long hours at the hospital and lived modestly in a small apartment near downtown Boston. They assumed my resident physician salary was my only income. Saturday morning, I decided to visit Emma at her apartment to understand her vision for this expensive wedding. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. She was addressing save-the-date cards at her kitchen table, surrounded by wedding planning chaos. Is this wedding what you really want, or is it what you think you should want? She looked surprised. What do you mean? I mean, $185,000 is a lot of money. Are you comfortable with Mom and Dad going into debt for your wedding day? Natalie, every bride deserves one perfect day. Mom has been planning my wedding since I was 12 years old. She's more excited about this than I am, honestly. But what do you want? If money weren't a factor, what would your ideal wedding look like? Emma was quiet for a moment. You know what? I'd probably want something smaller. More intimate. Brad and I talked about eloping to Italy, but Mom cried when we mentioned it. You wanted to elope? We wanted to spend our money on a house down payment and a honeymoon. But Mom said a wedding is a once-in-a-lifetime event that brings families together. And now you're having the wedding Mom wants instead of the wedding you want. I guess so. But Nat, I can't break her heart. She's been dreaming about this day for years. I understood then that this wasn't really Emma's wedding, it was Mom's production with Emma as the star performer. Monday morning I called the Chateau Belmont to inquire about their payment policies. Good morning, this is Dr. Natalie Harrison. My sister Emma is having her wedding at your venue in October. Oh yes, the Harrison Matthews wedding. How can I help you? I wanted to confirm the payment schedule for the event. Let me pull up the contract. We have a $15,000 deposit already paid, and the remaining $32,000 is due 30 days before the event. And if the payment doesn't go through? We would need to discuss alternative payment arrangements or potentially cancel the booking. I see. Thank you for the information. That afternoon I made a decision that would change everything. I called my attorney Robert Kim, who handled my intellectual property and business affairs. Robert, I need to set up a family trust with some specific parameters. What kind of trust are you thinking about? I want to create an education and family milestone fund. It should be able to cover educational expenses, weddings, home purchases, major life events for family members. What's the initial funding amount? Let's start with $500,000. Natalie, that's a substantial trust. What's prompting this decision? I explained the situation with Emma's wedding and my parents' financial sacrifice. So you want to help with the wedding costs without your family knowing the money is coming from you? I want to help in a way that doesn't change how they see me or treat me. If they suddenly know I'm worth millions, it might complicate our relationships. I understand. We can structure this as an anonymous family foundation that provides grants for significant life events. 2 weeks later, everything was in place. The Harrison Family Foundation was established as a legitimate charitable trust focused on supporting educational and life milestone expenses for qualifying family members. On Thursday evening, Mom called me in tears. Natalie, I don't know what we're going to do. What's wrong, Mom? The wedding venue called today. They need the final payment next week, but the home equity loan paperwork is taking longer than expected. The bank says it might be another month before the funds are available. Have you talked to Emma about adjusting the timeline? Emma is beside herself. The invitations are already sent, the dress is being altered, the photographer is booked. We can't postpone everything now. What about using the college fund money? We already spent most of that on the deposit and other vendors. Natalie, I'm scared we're going to have to cancel the wedding. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Mom, what if I told you there might be another option? What kind of option? Well, I've been doing some research and there are actually foundations that provide grants for family milestone events. Educational funds that have expanded their mission to include weddings, home purchases, things like that. That sounds too good to be true. It's worth looking into. Let me make some calls tomorrow and see what I can find out. Friday afternoon, I called Mom back with good news. Mom, you're not going to believe this, but I found something. What? There's a foundation called the Harrison Family Foundation. I know, crazy coincidence with the name, and they provide grants for educational expenses and major family milestones. How did you find out about this? I asked some colleagues at the hospital about emergency funding options, and one of them mentioned this foundation. Apparently, they've helped several families with wedding expenses when traditional financing fell through. How much could they provide? I filled out a preliminary application, and they indicated they could potentially cover the entire remaining wedding cost. Mom was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Mom? Are you there? Natalie, are you telling me there's a foundation that might pay for Emma's entire wedding? That's what it looks like. The foundation focuses on families who have demonstrated financial responsibility and have legitimate educational or milestone funding needs. What do we need to do? I already submitted the initial paperwork. They'll need some financial documents from you and Dad, and they want to verify the wedding expenses, but the foundation representative seemed very optimistic. This is a miracle. It really might be. Over the weekend, I worked with Robert to expedite the grant approval process. By Monday morning, everything was ready. The foundation would cover the remaining $58,000 in wedding expenses, plus provide an additional $25,000 for the honeymoon and miscellaneous costs Emma and Brad hadn't budgeted for. Mom called me crying happy tears. Natalie, the foundation approved our application. They're paying for everything, the venue, the remaining catering costs, even Emma's honeymoon. That's incredible, Mom. The woman from the foundation said our family demonstrated exactly the kind of financial responsibility and educational values they want to support. You and Dad have always been responsible with money. She also said something interesting. She said the foundation was particularly impressed by your educational achievements and career path. Apparently, having a daughter who went to medical school was a significant factor in their decision. I smiled. Well, I'm glad my education could help Emma in some way. Natalie, this means we don't have to take out the home equity loan. We don't have to touch your college fund. The foundation is covering everything. And Emma gets her dream wedding. She gets her dream wedding and our family doesn't go into debt. I can't believe how lucky we are. That evening, the whole family gathered to celebrate the miracle funding. Emma was ecstatic, Brad was relieved, and my parents looked 10 years younger without the financial stress. I still can't believe this foundation exists, Dad said, shaking his head in amazement. The woman I spoke with said they've been operating quietly for several years, I explained. They don't advertise because they want to help families who are genuinely in need, not people looking for free money. What kind of requirements did they have? Emma asked. Educational achievement, financial responsibility, family stability. Dad being a principal for 20 years and Mom's work in healthcare were big factors. Plus my medical degree and Brad's steady employment history. It's like they were looking for families exactly like ours, Mom mused. Sometimes things just work out perfectly, I agreed. The wedding took place on a perfect October day. Emma looked radiant in her dress. The venue was everything she dreamed of, and the celebration was genuinely joyful without the undercurrent of financial stress that had been building for months. During her maid of honor speech, Emma thanked our parents for their sacrifice and mentioned the miraculous foundation that had made everything possible. Sometimes, she said, angels appear in the most unexpected forms. Our family was blessed by strangers who believed in us and supported our happiness. If only she knew how close to home that angel actually lived. 6 months later, I finally found the right moment to tell my family about MedFlow Solutions. We were having Sunday dinner, and Dad was talking about a new software system the school district was considering for scheduling. It's called MedFlow Solutions, he said. Ironically, it was designed for hospitals, but apparently it works great for educational scheduling too. I've heard of that company, I said carefully. The principal at Jefferson High says it's revolutionized how they handle staff scheduling and student appointments. Makes me wish I understood technology better. Dad, what if I told you I could give you a demonstration of how it works? You know about this software? Actually, I developed it. The room went completely silent. You, what? Mom asked. I created MedFlow Solutions during my last year at MIT. The software you're describing, I wrote it. Natalie, Emma said slowly, are you saying you own that company? I own the patents and licensing rights, yes. Dad stared at me. Sweetie, how much money does this software generate? Enough to live comfortably. Enough to live comfortably or enough to fund wedding foundations? I looked around the table at my family, all of them staring at me with growing understanding. Emma, do you remember how grateful you were to that mysterious foundation that paid for your wedding? Of course. It was the most generous gift our family has ever received. What if I told you that gift came from someone who loves you and wanted your wedding day to be perfect? Emma's eyes widened. Natalie, was that you? The Harrison Family Foundation is real and it will continue to help our family with major life expenses. But yes, the funding comes from my software licensing fees. Mom started crying. You paid for Emma's wedding? I paid for Emma's happiness. And for Dad's ability to retire without debt. And for the peace of mind that comes from knowing our family doesn't have to choose between dreams and financial security. But why didn't you just tell us you had the money? Dad asked. Because I wanted Emma's wedding to be about celebrating her marriage, not about my bank account. I wanted you and Mom to feel proud of providing for your daughter, not indebted to me. Natalie, Emma whispered, how much money do you actually have? Enough to take care of all of us for the rest of our lives. The conversation that followed lasted 3 hours. They learned about the patents, the licensing deals, the investment portfolio that had grown from software royalties. I learned about their fears that they hadn't provided enough for their daughters, their pride in my medical career, and their amazement that I'd built a technology company alongside becoming a doctor. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Mom asked. Because I needed you to love me for who I am, not what I've accomplished. I needed to know that your support was unconditional. Our support has always been unconditional, Dad said firmly. I know that now. But I needed to be sure. Emma hugged me tightly. So when you said you wanted me to be happy, I meant it in every possible way. And the college fund Mom was going to use? Is still yours if you ever want to go back to school. The foundation can cover a lot of dreams, Emma. Over the following months, family dynamics shifted in subtle but important ways. My parents stopped worrying about retirement and started planning travel adventures. Emma and Brad used foundation funding to buy their first home. Dad implemented MedFlow Solutions at his school and became the district's unofficial technology advocate. But the most important change was that my family finally saw me as I really was, not just Dr. Natalie who worked long hours, but Dr. Natalie who had built something extraordinary while pursuing her passion for medicine. The college fund Mom had worried about became the seed money for an expanded foundation that would eventually help cousins, future grandchildren, and family members not yet born. Natalie, Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls, I need to apologize. For what? For assuming you needed that college money more than Emma needed her wedding. I should have realized that our brilliant daughter who went to Harvard Medical School probably had her finances figured out. Mom, you couldn't have known about the software business. But I could have asked about your life instead of making assumptions. I could have trusted that you'd built something stable for yourself. You can ask now. I can ask now, she agreed. So tell me, what are you working on next? As I described my latest software project, a patient care coordination system that could revolutionize hospital efficiency, I realized that the most valuable thing about wealth wasn't the money itself. It was the freedom to help people you love without them feeling diminished by that help. Emma got her fairy tale wedding, my parents got their financial security, and I got the satisfaction of providing both without anyone feeling like charity cases. Sometimes the best gifts are the ones people think come from strangers, because that lets them feel blessed rather than indebted. And sometimes the most successful business ventures are the ones that let you take care of family without them ever having to know they needed taking care of. The Harrison Family Foundation continues to operate quietly, supporting educational goals and life milestones for people who deserve good things but might not otherwise be able to afford them. And sometimes, late at night when I'm working on new software innovations, I think about that text message from Mom about using my college fund. She was right that Emma deserved a perfect wedding day. She just never imagined that her other daughter had already ensured it would be perfect with or without that old college fund.